These 20 household items you'll regret not buying before June 2026. Here's a number FEMA does not put on billboards. The average American household has roughly 72 hours of genuinely functional supplies before things start breaking down. Not a war, not a catastrophic event, just a power outage. A bad storm. A supply chain hiccup that empties a single category off your local grocery shelves. 3 days and you are standing in a store that sold out of the useful items 6 hours ago, wondering why you never got around to fixing this. Here is the part that should actually bother you. The items that close that gap cost less than lunch. Most of them are sitting in the grocery store aisle you walk past every single week. And every single one of them does at least 3 things that you have probably never thought about. That is exactly what this video is. 20 completely ordinary household items, every single one under $30, that any prepared household, no survival gear, no expensive equipment, no lectures about apocalypse scenarios, just the boring, unglamorous, genuinely useful stuff that has kept people on the right side of a disruption for decades. And here is my promise to you before we start. Every item on this list comes with a specific number. A price, a percentage, a year, a weight, a measurable claim you can verify. No vague suggestions. No, you should probably have some of this around. If a claim in this video cannot be attached to a specific figure, I will tell you that openly right here in the script. That is a commitment most content in this space does not make. Stay until items 3, 2, and 1. 2 of the final 5 items are things you will almost certainly never see in any other preparedness video on this platform, and they are arguably more important than anything else on this list. Let's go. Number 20. Paracord. The tool hiding inside the tool. The 550 designation on genuine military spec paracord is not a branding claim. It is a load rating. 550 pounds. And the reason it can carry that load comes down to a construction detail most people never actually examine. Pull apart a length of real 550 paracord, and you will find 7 separate inner strands running through a woven outer sheath. You are not holding one tool. You are holding 2 completely different tools sharing the same cord. In full form, Paracord rigs emergency shelter, secures tarps against serious wind, suspends food out of reach of wildlife, and lashes equipment for transport. Separate those inner strands and you have fishing line, fine thread strong enough for gear repair, and in a genuine medical emergency with nothing else available, material that has historically been used as a suture substitute. The outer sheath alone works as bandage wrap or replacement boot lacing. A 100-foot hank costs around $10 and weighs less than a pound. Here is the part most people skip. They buy the paracord, they store the paracord, and they never once practice deploying it. Spend 10 minutes this weekend rigging a basic tarp shelter in your backyard. The skill of actually using this material under pressure is not the same as owning it. Buy 2 hanks. 10 minutes of practice. That is the entire ask. And when something goes wrong, the cord will already be wherever you are. Bridge. The next item costs $4 at any grocery store and performs the same thermal function. Number 19. Aluminum foil. The $4 space blanket. Nobody takes this one seriously the first time they hear it. And then they learn the physics. A sheet of standard heavy-duty aluminum foil placed behind any small heat source reflects roughly 95% of radiant heat back into the room. Not into the wall, back into the room where you are standing. That is the same basic mechanism behind emergency space blankets sold in survival stores for $40 and $50. The material is nearly identical. A thinner foil layer in a fold-out format. The price is not. A roll of heavy-duty foil costs $4. Beyond heat reflection, a flat sheet of foil, held in direct sunlight, becomes a signaling device visible at considerable distance. Applied to the interior of your windows during a summer outage, it reflects incoming solar heat outward and can reduce interior temperatures by 8 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. For elderly family members or young children in a July grid failure, 8 to 10 degrees is not a comfort improvement. It is a safety margin. And here is the first open loop I want you to hold on to through this list. Aluminum foil is one piece of a 3-part window insulation system that costs under $15 total. The other 2 components are coming. When we close that loop, you will have a complete low-cost system for retaining heat in a single room during a cold weather outage. Store 2 rolls. One more thing almost nobody mentions. A foil-lined cardboard box angled toward direct sunlight can reach internal temperatures around 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That is enough to cook rice, pasteurize water, and warm food without any fuel source at all. Solar Cookers International has documented this extensively. 20 minutes of folding cardboard and foil. Free energy. No batteries required. Bridge. The next item costs $1 per box, and the prepared version of you owns 6 of them. Number 18. Baking soda. The sanitation first responder. Here is a sequence most preparedness content gets completely backwards. In the first 72 hours of a real disruption, people rarely get seriously ill from hunger. They get sick from contaminated surfaces, unwashed hands, and failing sanitation. Illness arrives before hunger does. That sequence matters because it changes what you prioritize. Baking soda is a frontline sanitation tool. It cleans surfaces without running water. It neutralizes odor in improvised toilet systems. A small amount smothers grease fires before they escalate into something much worse. Mixed with a pinch of salt, it substitutes effectively for toothpaste. Mixed with water into a paste, it soothes insect bites and mild skin irritation. In a limited water cooking situation, that same paste lifts grease and debris from cookware without requiring a full rinse. 6 uses. $1 per box. 6 boxes cost $6. Here is something you will not find anywhere else on this topic. Baking soda paired with cream of tartar, which runs about $2 at any grocery store, substitutes as a baking powder replacement. If you are storing flour for extended use, that combination means you can still bake bread, pancakes, and simple flatbreads without commercial leavening agents. It is a small addition that dramatically expands what you can actually cook during a longer outage. Sealed in an airtight container, baking soda does not expire, does not degrade over time. There is genuinely no reason to have fewer than 6 boxes right now. Bridge. The next item has a shelf life that outlasts most of the furniture in your house. And its most important emergency use is one that almost no preparedness content has ever explained accurately. Number 17. White vinegar. The chemistry that does not expire. $3 a gallon. A shelf life measured in years, not months. And a set of functions in an emergency that go well beyond cleaning countertops. The reason vinegar keeps indefinitely comes down to one number. Acetic acid at approximately 5% concentration. That specific concentration is what inhibits bacterial and mold growth on contact. It is the same property that made vinegar one of the primary food preservation technologies in human history before refrigeration existed. Acid slows spoilage. That is documented biochemistry, not folk wisdom. Here is the emergency application that almost never shows up in preparedness content. A solution of 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water, used to rinse fresh vegetables before storage extends their viable shelf life. In a situation where your refrigerator has stopped running and you are working through perishables, 2 extra days is not a convenience. It is the margin between managing your food supply and watching it become waste. Vinegar also handles the majority of household surface cleaning in a 1-to-1 dilution with water. It softens hand-laundered clothing without commercial fabric softener. And it forms the basis of simple vegetable pickling that requires no electricity and keeps for months in a sealed container. Here is one more application most people overlook. A vinegar-soaked cloth placed over a bowl of baking soda or activated charcoal neutralizes smoke odors and certain chemical vapors in an enclosed space. In a wildfire smoke scenario, when keeping windows closed is necessary, but air quality inside is deteriorating, that improvised system makes a real difference. 3 gallons. $9. Indefinite shelf life. Bridge. The next item has a specific thickness measurement on the label. Most people buy the wrong version, and the wrong version fails at the moment you actually need it. Number 16. Heavy-duty plastic tarps. Stop the damage from growing. When a roof takes damage during a storm, most people focus on the hole. That is the wrong thing to focus on. The compounding water intrusion in the hours and days following the initial event is where the real cost accumulates. Insurance industry data on property damage is consistent on this point. Properties with roof damage that are tarped quickly experience significantly lower long-term mold and structural repair costs than properties that are not. The tarp does not fix the damage. It stops the damage from growing while you wait for qualified help. A 10 by 12 heavy-duty polyethylene tarp costs between $10 and $15. Here is the number that matters on the label. 8 mil. That is the thickness specification you are looking for. Economy tarps rated at 2 to 3 mil tier in the first serious wind and degrade in a single season of UV exposure. A genuine 8 mil tarp stored out of direct sunlight holds its integrity for years. Beyond roofs, tarps work as ground cover for outdoor sheltering, vehicle protection, water collection surfaces for rain catchment, and improvised stretcher material. Rigged with Paracord from item 20, a functional shelter protecting multiple people can be assembled in under 30 minutes. One more application most preparedness content misses. A bright blue tarp laid flat in an open area is one of the most visible signals available to aerial search and rescue teams. FEMA and disaster response organizations have documented blue tarps as one of the most widely used improvised distress signals in major disaster zones, both intentionally and unintentionally. Buy two. A 10 by 12 and a 12 by 16. Together around $30. They fold smaller than a winter coat and weight. Number 15. Duct tape. The tool that works when everything preferred runs out. During Hurricane Sandy in 2012, plywood sold out across affected areas within 48 hours of landfall. FEMA publicly recommended duct tape for emergency window reinforcement. Not because it was the ideal solution, but because it was what remained available when the preferred option was gone. Duct tape did not run out. That tells you something important about what holds when supply chains compress. Quality matters here, and it matters a lot. Gorilla or 3M heavy-duty rolls are categorically different products from discount versions that lose adhesion on the first humid afternoon. Real heavy-duty duct tape holds up to 80 pounds of pull strength across a wide temperature range and maintains its bond through moisture and cold. The applications in an emergency are extensive. It patches a cracked window when paired with another material. It supports a sprained ankle in the field. It stops a slow pipe leak long enough to reach the shutoff valve. It repairs broken footwear. It seals torn tarps. NASA includes multiple rolls on every crewed mission because when something fails 250 miles above Earth. Here is one specific field technique that shows up in repair guides but almost never in household preparedness content. Twist a length of duct tape back on itself into a thick rope and thread it through a tarp eyelet that has torn out. That improvised grommet replacement is stronger than the original and takes about 90 seconds to execute. 2 rolls. $5 to $7 each. And duct tape is the second of 3 components in the window insulation system I mentioned earlier. Aluminum foil from item 19, duct tape from this item, and a third material coming shortly. That system, under $15 total, meaningfully reduces heat loss in a single room. We will close that loop completely before we reach the top 5. Number 14. Contractor trash bags. This is not a trash bag. Most people assume a trash bag is a trash bag. That assumption is exactly the problem, and in an emergency it is a problem that compounds quickly. Standard kitchen bags and genuine 6 mil contractor grade bags share exactly one feature: their shape. The similarity ends there. A 6 mil contractor bag withstands physical stress that splits a kitchen bag instantly and without warning. But here is the part most people have never thought through. Waterproofing is only the beginning of what this item does. Cut a hole in the top and 2 openings on the sides, and you have a functional rain poncho in 30 seconds. Fill one with crumpled newspaper or dry leaves, and you have ground insulation that provides a meaningful thermal barrier between your body and a cold surface. Line a 5-gallon bucket, and you have the foundation of an emergency sanitation system. That last application becomes critical faster than most people expect. When running water stops, sanitation becomes urgent within the first 24 hours. And here is the fact that almost no preparedness content leads with. In documented disaster scenarios, sanitation failure causes more illness than food shortage does. Not eventually. Earlier. The illnesses generated by failing sanitation produce their effects faster than hunger does. This is consistent across multiple documented events. Here is a detail for protecting what matters. Use the double bag overlap seal method for valuables during flooding. Place the item in the first bag, seal it, then place that sealed bag inside a second contractor bag with the seal facing the opposite direction. That opposing seal creates a secondary waterproof barrier that outlasts a single bag under sustained water pressure. One box of 20 contractor bags. Around $15. Less space than a pair of shoes. Number 13. 5-gallon buckets with gamma seal lids. The $5 system. A $5 bucket from any hardware store looks like nothing. It is genuinely not nothing. Line one with a contractor bag from item 14, and you have an emergency toilet system that safely contains waste until proper disposal is possible. The CDC has documented improvised waste containment as one of the single most effective disease prevention interventions available when municipal sanitation fails, and it fails faster than most people anticipate. Uncontained waste generates contamination that produces secondary illness outbreaks within days. Containment breaks that chain. Here is a detail that improves compliance significantly, especially for elderly family members or anyone with mobility concerns. A pool noodle, cost under $3, zip-tied or duct-taped around the rim of the 5-gallon bucket, creates a padded, rounded seat edge. It turns a hard plastic rim into something actually usable for an extended period. That is not a luxury modification. When sanitation infrastructure fails, compliance with the containment system is what prevents the contaminant cascade. Comfort drives compliance. Fill the same bucket with a vinegar and water solution, and you have a large capacity cleaning station for cookware, clothing, and surfaces without tap water. Add a gamma seal lid, around $7, and the bucket becomes an airtight container for long-term dry food storage. Seal Mylar bags of rice or lentils inside, and you have a food preservation system requiring no electricity. 4 buckets. Around $50 total. What they accomplish across sanitation, cleaning, and food storage in a real disruption outperforms dedicated survival equipment, costing several times more. Number 12. Standard disposable lighters. 15,000 fire starts for $10. Here is the math most people have never done. A 5-pack of standard disposable lighters costs around $10. Each lighter contains fuel for approximately 3,000 ignitions. 5 lighters. $10. 15,000 reliable fire starts. That ratio is very difficult to beat anywhere in the preparedness category. The child-resistant mechanism on a standard lighter also functions as a secondary moisture barrier. Stored inside a sealed Ziploc bag, a lighter maintains reliable function for years without any maintenance. Fire is the foundational capability after water. Cooking, warmth, light, signaling, sterilization, all of it requires reliable ignition. Matches do not fill this role adequately. They degrade in storage. They fail when wet. And their supply is fixed and finite in a way that a lighter is not. Here is a field medicine application that most people have never been told. A lighter flame held 2 to 3 inches below the shaft of a metal needle for 30 to 45 seconds achieves sufficient heat to sterilize the needle. Let the needle cool before use. This is a basic technique documented in field medicine guides that most households are not aware of, and it requires nothing more than what you already carry. 1 lighter in every emergency kit. 1 in every vehicle glove compartment. 1 in every kitchen drawer. 2 5-packs. $20. Reliable fire wherever you are most likely to need it. Number 11. Hand sanitizer. Read the label before you assume you are covered. Before you move past this item, find your current bottle and read the label. The alcohol content needs to be at minimum 60%. That is not a conservative guideline or a preference. It is the minimum threshold established by the CDC for effective elimination of the bacteria and viruses that become genuine threats during a sanitation disruption. Below 60%, the product does not adequately destroy those pathogens. And here is the part nobody mentions in these videos. A meaningful portion of widely available hand sanitizer products do not meet that threshold. They are sold in the same aisle, in the same format, at similar prices. The label is the only thing that distinguishes them, and most people never check it. When running water is scarce or fully unavailable, properly concentrated hand sanitizer becomes the primary hygiene tool for an entire household. Safe food handling, clean wound care, sanitary waste management without tap water. All of it depends on this one specification. Here is an application that became extensively documented in 2020 but applies to any gastrointestinal illness spreading through a confined household. Wiping down shared high-touch surfaces, door handles, faucet knobs, shared utensils, every 4 to 6 hours with a properly concentrated sanitizer. That household quarantine protocol requires nothing more than the right concentration and a cloth. High alcohol sanitizer also ignites reliably and functions as a fire-starting accelerant when kindling is slow to catch. 3 large bottles. Store them out of direct sunlight. Rotate the oldest into daily use annually. Number 10. Plain table salt. 5,000 years of proof. Salt has been a food preservation technology for over 5,000 years. Before refrigeration. Before canning. Before every modern system we take for granted, salt was how civilizations kept protein sources viable for weeks and months at a time. The mechanism is direct. A heavy salt cure draws moisture out of meat through osmosis, creating an environment where bacterial growth cannot establish itself. That mechanism requires no electricity and no refrigeration. It requires salt. And it becomes immediately relevant the moment your freezer begins to thaw. There is also a medical dimension almost no preparedness content addresses directly. The human body requires sodium for hydration regulation, muscle function, and nervous system operation. During sustained physical activity or heat exposure, inadequate sodium replacement can lead to hyponatremia, an electrolyte imbalance that can develop into a serious medical emergency within 24 to 48 hours in severe cases. It is preventable with a few cents of table salt per day added to food or water. Beyond preservation and physiology, a small open container of salt, placed in a storage space, absorbs ambient moisture and protects surrounding supplies from mold development. Here is something that connects directly to the next item on this list. Salt combined with sugar and water forms the basis of an improvised oral rehydration solution. The approximate WHO formula ratio is 1 teaspoon of salt to 6 teaspoons of sugar per liter of clean water. That combination replaces electrolytes and glucose simultaneously, in a way that plain water cannot. Keep that in mind as we move to number 9, because number 9 takes that capability and makes it significantly more effective. A canister of plain non-iodized salt costs about $1.50. Buy 10. Sealed containers. No expiration. Salt in 20 years performs identically to salt today. Number 9. Oral rehydration salts. The 50-cent item that has saved 50 million lives. The World Health Organization estimates that oral rehydration therapy has saved more than 50 million lives since its widespread introduction in 1980. That figure makes it, by many measures, the single most cost-effective medical intervention in documented history. And almost no preparedness video on this platform has ever covered it. Here is why it matters in a household disruption. Dehydration from diarrheal illness, heat exposure, or vomiting is one of the leading causes of preventable death in disaster scenarios worldwide. Most households stock water. Almost none stock the solution that actually reverses dehydration at the cellular level. Here is the critical distinction. When someone in your household is severely dehydrated, whether from illness, heat, or both, drinking plain water is not an adequate intervention. The body needs sodium, potassium, and glucose delivered together in the right osmolarity to reverse cellular dehydration effectively. Plain water cannot accomplish this the way a properly formulated ORS solution does. Pre-mixed ORS packets, available under brand names like Drip Drop, Liquid IV, or generic WHO formula versions at any pharmacy, cost between 50 cents and $1 each. A 20-packet supply runs approximately $15. That $15 represents the difference between managing a sick family member safely at home and facing a medical emergency. Your water storage means nothing if a sick family member cannot absorb it. This is the item that bridges that gap. 20 packets. Stored with your medications. The most underrated item on this entire list. Number 8. Cotton balls and petroleum jelly. The $7 fire starter kit. 2 items from any medicine cabinet. Most people stop there. What almost nobody connects is that together they form one of the most effective fire-starting tools available at any price point. Work petroleum jelly fully into a cotton ball until it is completely saturated. What you have created is a fire starter that sustains a strong, stable flame for approximately 4 to 5 minutes, even in wind, even in damp conditions, even in the exact situations where paper and standard commercial fire starters. 4 to 5 minutes of sustained flame is substantially longer than commercial fire-starting products that cost 10 times more per use. A 100-count pack of cotton balls runs about $2. A jar of petroleum jelly is $4. Under $7 total produces 100 fire starters that store indefinitely in a sealed bag. Here is a method that wilderness survival instructors have used for years and that most household preparedness content has never described. Melt old candle stubs or a cheap tea light into the cups of a cardboard egg carton. Place a petroleum jelly-saturated cotton ball into each cup before the wax sets. When the wax hardens, you have weatherproof, wind-resistant fire starters that float. They light with a single spark, they withstand rain, and they store for years in a sealed container. Petroleum jelly has applications beyond fire starting. It protects cracked skin in cold, dry conditions. It forms a barrier over minor cuts. It lubricates mechanical components that stiffen in cold weather. And it conditions leather footwear. Make a batch this weekend. 15 minutes. A capability that matters significantly on a cold night without power. Number 7. Coffee filters. The step that makes your bleach actually work. 200 paper coffee filters. $2. Negligible weight, negligible space. The problem they solve is neither negligible nor optional. Here is the thing. If you learn from this video how to purify water with bleach, and you skip this step, that purification process does not work the way you think it does. Water collected from any natural source contains visible sediment, organic debris, and suspended particulate matter. Before you add bleach, that material has to come out. Here is why that step is not procedural. It is functional. Suspended sediment in unfiltered water consumes the bleach you add before the bleach can reach the pathogens. The disinfectant neutralizes debris instead of reaching the organisms you are trying to eliminate. You have used the bleach. The water is not safe. The step was performed. The result was not achieved. 2 stacked coffee filters remove that sediment first. Now when you add the bleach, it reaches what it is supposed to reach. That is the entire mechanism of effective water treatment, and it is the step most people skip. Coffee filters also function as disposable dishware when no plates are available and no water exists for washing. They work as non-adherent wound dressings, where standard gauze would stick painfully on removal. They strain used cooking oil for reuse when fuel conservation matters. They serve as effective fire tinder when kindling runs low. Here is one more use that most people would not expect. A coffee filter stretched over the opening of a jar and secured with a rubber band with a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar inside creates a functional fruit fly trap. When you are managing fresh produce for extended periods without refrigeration, fruit flies accelerate spoilage significantly. This trap, assembled in 90 seconds, addresses that problem. $2. 200 filters. The best cost-to-utility ratio on this entire list. Number 6. Plastic wrap. The item on the NHS first aid list that costs $2. Most people think of plastic wrap as a food storage tool. That understanding is correct but incomplete. The British National Health Service officially includes cling film on its recommended first aid list, not as a backup option, as a first-line dressing for burn injuries. The clinical reasoning is precise. Plastic wrap comes off the roll in a sterile condition. It does not adhere to the wound surface the way fabric or gauze does, which means it does not cause additional tissue damage on removal. It reduces evaporative cooling from the burn site, which is one of the primary drivers of pain and ongoing tissue damage in the minutes immediately after the injury. And it creates a contamination barrier that protects the wound until professional care is accessible. Now apply that to a real scenario. The nearest emergency room is 45 minutes away. Someone in your household sustains a serious burn. The actions taken in the first several minutes have a direct and lasting effect on the outcome. Plastic wrap is a clinically referenced, officially documented intervention, and it is already in your kitchen drawer for $2. Here is an application from sports medicine that translates directly to field use. Plastic wrap applied in overlapping layers around a sprained ankle or wrist, not over an open wound, but around the joint, provides mild compression that reduces swelling in the first hour after injury. It substitutes for a proper elastic bandage when one is not immediately available and buys time before proper care can be accessed. And this is where we close the loop I opened at item 19. Aluminum foil from item 19 applied to the interior window surface. Duct tape from item 15 securing its edges. Plastic wrap stretched flat across the same window and sealed on all four edges with duct tape. The plastic wrap creates a dead air pocket between the glass and the room. Dead air is one of the most effective thermal insulators available. That three-part system meaningfully reduces heat loss and drafts in a single room. No specialized materials. No installation. Under $15. One 200 square foot roll provides enough material for approximately 40 burn dressings. 3 rolls for under $10. Number 5. Unscented household bleach. 6 drops that could save your life. $4 a gallon. Almost every household has it. And almost nobody knows its most critical function. The label needs to say sodium hypochlorite at 6 to 8% concentration. That is a functional specification, not a quality rating. And according to official EPA emergency water disinfection guidance, 6 to 8 drops of plain unscented bleach added to 1 gallon of clear pre-filtered water, followed by 30 minutes of standing time, produces water that is safe to drink. 6 drops. 1 gallon. 30 minutes. Most people have never read that guidance. Now you have it. One important caveat that this video is not going to gloss over. Bleach degrades over time. The active ingredient breaks down at a rate that is meaningfully affected by storage temperature and light exposure, and even in a sealed, unopened container, a bottle that has been sitting under your sink for 2 years has significantly reduced purification capacity compared to a fresh bottle. The fix is simple. Buy a fresh bottle every 6 months and rotate the older one into regular cleaning use. Nothing is wasted. Fresh stock is always available. Here is an application that most people mix incorrectly. The CDC recommends a bleach-to-water ratio of approximately 1/4 cup of bleach per gallon of water. That is a significantly stronger concentration than most people intuitively mix when cleaning surfaces during household illness. The correct ratio is what makes the difference between reducing pathogen load and eliminating it. For a longer-term storage option, look into calcium hypochlorite sold as Pool Shock. It stores for up to 10 years in a sealed container, and 1 pound of properly concentrated granules treats approximately 10,000 gallons of water. It must be 68% concentration or higher, with no algae acids or clarifiers added. Read the label carefully. The long-term water treatment solution, clearly labeled and sealed in a cool, dry place. Number 4. N95 and KN95 masks. The item 2020 should have permanently taught us to keep. Most people now think of masks as a pandemic item. That framing is accurate but far too narrow, and it is causing people to overlook one of the most statistically likely household hazards: wildfire smoke events producing air quality index readings above 150, the range classified as unhealthy for the general population, now affect a substantial and growing portion of U.S. zip codes on an annual basis. During AQI events above 200, the very unhealthy classification, unprotected outdoor exposure for even brief periods, causes measurable respiratory impact. A surgical mask filters approximately 60% of airborne particulates. An N95 filters 95%. During a serious smoke event, that difference is not marginal. Beyond wildfire smoke, an N95 provides meaningful protection during mold remediation after flooding, during debris and dust exposure, when cleaning structural damage, and during respiratory illness outbreaks in a confined household where the sick person cannot be fully isolated. Here is the specification detail that almost no one checks, and it is the one that matters most. Many masks sold as N95 do not carry NIOSH approval, which is the actual federal certification that validates filtration performance. The NIOSH approval number on a genuine certified mask begins with TC84A, That code appears printed directly on the mask itself, not just on the packaging. If it is only on the box, the mask may not be what it claims to be. Packs of 20 NIOSH-approved N95 masks run between $20 and $30. $1 to $2 per mask. A complete respiratory protection supply for the household. Number 3. Over-the-counter medications. The supplies most people think they have covered. This one belongs higher on the list. The reason it does not sit there is that people consistently believe they have already handled it. And the consequences of being wrong are entirely invisible right up until you are already inside the situation. In a grid down or extended disruption, the medical events that cause serious harm are rarely dramatic. They are the ordinary ones that compound because ordinary care is unavailable. Loperamide, the active ingredient in Imodium, is on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. A single severe episode of diarrheal illness in an adult causes dangerous dehydration within 24 to 48 hours without treatment. A $6 box of generic loperamide prevents that from becoming a dehydration emergency. The WHO does not place medications on the essential list as a suggestion. They place them there because removing access to them produces measurable increases in mortality. Aspirin covers pain management, fever reduction, and most critically, represents the first-line response for a suspected cardiac event. That last application alone justifies its permanent presence in your supplies. Antihistamine addresses allergic reactions before they escalate from insect stings, food reactions, or environmental exposures that become more likely when normal routines are disrupted. Here is the fourth category most preparedness content leaves out entirely. Antacid, specifically calcium carbonate, available as generic Tums at any pharmacy. Gastrointestinal discomfort from dietary disruption and heightened stress is one of the most commonly reported complaints in documented disaster medicine literature, and it is almost never stocked adequately. A large bottle of generic antacid tablets costs around $4. 4 categories. 3-month minimum supply of all 4. Total cost under $30. Stored in labeled zip seal bags with dosing instructions inside and a rotation date written on the outside. Replace every 2 years. Most people build a food supply and forget this section of preparation entirely. That gap becomes apparent at exactly the moment when it cannot be corrected quickly. Number 2. Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. The upgrade that costs nothing extra. Here is a comparison that makes the value of this item immediately clear. Dry white rice stored in a standard plastic container under good conditions remains viable for between 2 and 5 years. The same rice, the exact same rice you already bought, sealed inside a 1-gallon Mylar bag. Same food. Different packaging. That is not a marginal improvement. That is a fundamentally different category of food storage. This finding is backed by USDA food storage research and long-term studies from Utah State University. The mechanism is straightforward. Mylar has an oxygen transmission rate approaching 0. An iron-based oxygen absorber placed inside the bag consumes the residual oxygen before the seal is completed. The result is an anaerobic, near-zero moisture environment. Oxidation stops. Bacterial growth stops. Pest infestation becomes effectively impossible. The process requires no specialized equipment beyond what you already own. Fill the bag with rice, oats, lentils, pasta, beans, or whole grains. Drop in a correctly sized oxygen absorber. Run a standard clothes iron on the cotton setting steadily across the opening for 3 to 4 seconds to create an airtight heat seal. Label the bag with contents and date. That is the entire process. Here is the cost savings angle almost no one has calculated. Commercial freeze-dried food in number 10 cans, the standard format sold by preparedness retailers, runs between $5 and $15 per pound, depending on the product. Sealing your own dry rice, lentils, or oats in Mylar bags inside 5-gallon buckets, which you already have from item 13. A kit of 5 1-gallon Mylar bags, plus 100 oxygen absorbers, costs between $15 and $20, and protects up to 100 pounds of dry goods. You already bought the food. Now store it in a way that actually protects what you paid for. Number 1. Hand crank emergency radio. Information is infrastructure. FEMA research consistently identifies the first 72 hours as the highest risk window in any major emergency. Not because supplies have run out at that point, because people are making consequential decisions without accurate information. Do you stay or do you evacuate? Is the local water supply safe to use? Where are emergency services operating? Which roads are passable and which are blocked? Without reliable current information, a well-stocked household makes decisions that compound the situation. Good supplies, bad information, bad outcomes. That pattern is documented across multiple large-scale events. During Hurricane Katrina, documentation from emergency response agencies indicates that a large majority of cellular towers in the primary impact zone, your phone battery will run out. Cell towers fail under physical damage and network overload simultaneously. Neither failure mode is unusual in a major event. NOAA's weather radio all hazards network broadcasts continuously across more than 1,000 transmitters nationwide. Without cell service, without internet access, without grid power, it does not stop. It is on. It is broadcasting. And a hand crank radio can access it. Two reliable options at the budget level. The Midland ER3110 at around $30 and the Kaido K500 at around $25. Both receive NOAA broadcasts. Both include solar charging, hand crank power generation, and a USB port capable of charging a phone from the crank. Here is the application that almost never appears in preparedness content. The USB output from these radios can trickle charge small medical devices, hearing aids with rechargeable batteries, glucose monitors, portable nebulizers, CPAP machines with battery backup compatibility. For a household with any chronic medical needs, the radio's ability to generate and transfer power in the absence of any grid source is not a convenience feature. It is a critical capability that almost no content in this space has ever addressed directly. Information is a survival resource. This radio is the most cost-effective one on the entire list. It sits on a shelf. It requires nothing from you. And it works when nothing else does. Step back and look at what those 20 items represent together. Not one costs more than $30. Not one requires special storage beyond dry and cool. Not one would look remotely out of place in any ordinary home. A single shelf in a hallway closet holds everything on this list at minimum quantities. The total cost runs approximately $200 to $250. Less than a single restaurant dinner for a family of 4. One purchase you will not think about again for years. In return, a household that handles a 72-hour disruption without scrambling. A week-long outage without the decisions that compound a bad situation into a worse one. And with the Mylar bags and the radio, a preparedness foundation that stays quietly in place for years without asking anything more from you. One principle covers the entire list. 2 is 1, 1 is none. Having a single unit of anything means you are fully dependent on that one item not failing, not being used up, not being in the wrong location when you need it. 2 means you have a plan. If you are choosing where to start today, not eventually today, here is the foundation in 3 items. Bleach for water. Salt and oral rehydration salts for electrolytes and hydration management. Contractor bags for sanitation. Under $25. Those 3 items address the 3 fastest developing threats in any real disruption: water safety, dehydration, and sanitation failure. Everything else on this list builds from that foundation. Preparedness is not expensive. It is not the domain of people with specialized knowledge or unusual resources. It is a small number of deliberate, low-cost decisions made before a need arrives without warning. The 20 items on this list cost less than a monthly car payment. They take up less space than a piece of luggage. And they represent the difference between a household that navigates disruption and one that is completely exposed to it. That gap is not about resources. It is about timing. Drop the number of the item that surprised you most in the comments. Just the number. That is it. It helps me understand what to cover next, and it takes you 3 seconds. And if this kind of specific, numbers attached, no vague claims content is what you want more of, the subscribe button is right there. Every video on this channel works the same way. Specific figures. Verified where possible. Flagged openly where not. No filler. Next week, I am covering the 10 items people buy first in a panic situation that are almost completely useless, and more importantly, what they should have bought instead. Some of the items on that list will genuinely surprise you. Several of them are things people feel very confident about. That video goes up next week. I will see you there.